Take a person, take a story, take you on a journey. It's your take.
A very warm welcome. You're watching Your Take, and I'm your host, James Ewen. Thank you kindly for watching our channel, and don't forget to hit subscribe and see all our interviews. On today's Your Take, I talked to a talented young musician who is making a name for herself in country circles. My guest resides in Nashville and is a singer-songwriter who has been penning songs for the past 5 years on Nashville's MusicRow. The songs tell stories that are personable, edgy, no holds barred, but delivered with a tongue-in-cheek humour with a radio-friendly polish. My guest has a growing fan base, evidence when her song Treasure went viral on Tik Tok. She has now amassed over 500,000 followers and counting, with regular airplay on country radio and digital streaming platforms. On the live music scene, she has opened for several artists: Justin Moore, Hank Williams Jr., Toby Keith, the Eli Young Band, and Whiskey Myers. She's performed at the AT&T Stadium in Dallas, the Oklahoma Music Festival, and was a contestant on season 6 of NBC's hit television show, The Voice. On today's Your Take, I'm joined by Mary Heather Hickman. We discuss her upbringing, her musical pilgrimage, her unapologetic style of songwriting, where this tongue-in-cheek humour comes from, and if all Nashville cats really play as clean as country water. A very warm welcome, Mary. Thank you kindly for joining me today on this episode of Your Take.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
At first, I've never yet interviewed somebody in their car.
Yes.
So yeah, a first for me.
It's a little bit of a crazy day, yes.
We're obviously a lot already mentioned in the introduction, and we're going to trace the roots of your music, your journey, and the music you've recorded. But I always want to go back to the very beginnings and start from your upbringing. You were born in southern Arkansas, but you grew up in Frisco, Texas, outside of Dallas. Can I just ask what your recollections are from your childhood in Frisco, and what sort of things interested and stimulated you from a young age?
Yeah, I think growing up, I always was very drawn to music. My parents played a lot of classic country growing up, so I listened to a lot of Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard, kind of outlaw country. And I think at the time I didn't really appreciate it, but now that I'm older, I really do appreciate having that kind of baseline understanding of country music. Growing up in Frisco was interesting. It's a suburb of Dallas, so it's very different from southern Arkansas, where I'm from. And I would say growing up, I felt a little bit out of place. Just it was different than what I was used to in Arkansas. I've of course learned to love Frisco and have great connections there now, but initially it was a little bit of a change. And yeah, I got into music fairly quickly. In Texas, they have a lot of small Opries that you can play at with house bands. So I played a lot of those kind of starting around the age of 9 or 10. And my parents would take me all around the state of Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas. And I would play all the little Opry shows with the house bands there. And that was a lot of classic country music as well. So I would say that's kind of how I got started in country.
Shortly, I want to pick up on performing to live audiences from a young age. But before I do so, I wanted to come on to your parents, because they've been a big influence in your life.
For sure, yes.
Can you just tell us who they are and what they did in their careers? And do you also have siblings?
My parents, I have three siblings, or sorry, no, two siblings. I'm one of three. I have a brother and a sister. My sister's 2 years younger than me, and my brother is 8 years younger than me. So I'm the oldest. My parents, my mom was a school teacher when I was growing up. She taught third and fourth grade. And my dad had a lot of different jobs growing up. He managed a hunting store when we lived in Arkansas. We moved to Texas so that he could work in finance, and now he works in construction. So he's kind of been all over the place. And my brother's in college now. My sister is an interior designer, so she's also kind of in a creative field as well, just different.
Mary, I want to come on to the music and tap into where this love of music comes from and dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
At what age did you start performing and playing instruments? And do you come from a musical family? And you mentioned some of the influences you were exposed to growing up, but which musicians did you discover yourself and made a major impact for you?
Yeah, I started learning to play guitar probably when I was around 12 years old. And then I took piano lessons before that, but my teacher wanted me to learn classical piano, and I was definitely not into that. So it was kind of like pulling teeth trying to get me to practice piano, because I wanted to learn an instrument that I could, sing the songs that I liked. So guitar was that's where I decided to pick up guitar. And like I said, played all around Texas at some Opries with the house bands and all of that. What was the next question? Sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the musical influences.
Yes.
You were exposed to really through your parents' influence of the music they played in the household. But I wanted to ask, which musicians did you discover yourself and had a major impact on your music and making you want to become a musician?
Yes. I think the first musicians that I kind of started listening to on my own was definitely the Chicks, formerly the Dixie Chicks. And I just loved all of their songs. I think I wore that CD out that I had. Like, I played it. I could probably sing every word to every song on their debut album, Wide Open Spaces. So that was definitely a big one. I also loved Martina McBride. She kind of had those like big, powerful songs, and I thought they were just really fun to sing. So like a lot of those kind of 90s women in country, Shania Twain, Jody Messina definitely come to mind. And then as I got a little bit older, I listened to a lot of, Taylor Swift. I think she was really kind of gaining some traction when I was in like middle school. And she definitely, I'd always written songs because my dad had talked about the importance of, if you want to be a musician or a singer when you get older, you should learn how to write your own songs and have something to say. So I'd always kind of been writing songs from a young age, but I would say Taylor Swift was probably like the person that made it a little bit cooler to be a songwriter, especially within, to my peers. Like, she made songwriting kind of not like as weird of a thing to do, because I definitely got teased a little bit for it before she came onto the scene.
Shortly, I want to come on to talking about songwriting and particularly storytelling and what inspires you to write.
Yes.
But before we do so, I wanted to come on to another chapter in your life, which is your schooling. And I wanted to ask you, where were you schooled, and do you have happy memories from that period? And can you discuss your interest in pursuing a career in broadcasting at that time and your recollections from your time at college?
Yeah. Definitely. School was hard for me growing up. I definitely had, I had a group of friends, but I would say I always kind of felt like a little bit of an outsider. Like everybody else kind of got something that I wasn't getting. Um, and I really struggled to fit in, and reflecting back on that, I think I was trying to be someone that I wasn't. I was trying to like really fit in with the girls and guys in my class that were more popular. And I think it wasn't until I really like was true to who I was that I started making friends that I felt like got me a little bit better. And that was probably more in college. So I mean, I definitely had some good friends growing up, people that I still talk to this day, but I would say overall, oftentimes school was a struggle, and being home and doing music was kind of my escape from that. When I got into college, I went to University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, and initially wanted to pursue broadcast journalism. I loved like news, and I think journalism is interesting because it's also storytelling. You've got to portray something to an audience. So it's kind of in the same vein of songwriting. It's, a little not as quite as creative where you get to make up your own thing. But I wasn't always sure that music was something that I wanted to pursue professionally. I just don't think I had the belief in myself that I could do this. And yeah, when I went to college, I actually, right the summer before I went to college, I auditioned for the TV show The Voice, and got kind of cast onto the show, and was surrounded by people that were pursuing music as a career. And that is kind of where everything shifted for me. I saw real life people that were going after this dream. So shortly after that, my goals kind of switched to doing whatever I could to get to Nashville after I graduated college, and pursuing music full time. So I started in broadcast journalism, and I still really love journalism, but I ended up switching my major to communication because I was able to focus more on music and a band in college, because broadcast journalism was a lot of extra curricular out of class stuff that I didn't have as much time for.
Can we carry on and talk in a bit more detail about your time at college, particularly since you formed your own band, which were called Mary Heather and the Sinners?
Yes.
Can you describe the band's sound, the music you performed?
Yeah.
And also, sorry,
Okay.
who were the other band members, and did you play many live gigs?
Yeah, we played a ton of live shows. So our band members, the core band members, were myself, our guitar player Aaron Dethridge, and our drummer Scott Verity. And we had kind of rotating band members other than that, but we were kind of the core group there. And we started off playing cover band, like doing cover gigs. So in my college town, we would play on Dixon Street, which is like the big street in Fayetteville with all the bars. And we did lots of country covers, and we basically did a whole set of that. And then through getting to know my band members more, I shared with them that I actually wrote my own songs, and they were excited about that. So slowly we started adding my own original songs into the set. And I think by the end of the era of our band, we were doing mostly original songs, which was awesome that there, was an avenue for that in Fayetteville. So
original songwriting plays a huge part in your musical career, and already you've expressed your father's influence and him telling you about writing your own original material as an artist. But what has inspired you to write and compose your own material, and how would you describe the songs you perform? And can you also talk about your father's writing influence and also his musical advice?
Yeah. So my dad, nobody in my family, like in my immediate family, was super musical. My dad has a good singing voice and, has maybe picked up a few guitar chords here and there. But growing up, he always told me about his father, who was very much into songwriting and playing guitar. And sadly, I never got to meet my grandfather on my dad's side, but I would just hear stories about, just him having stacks and stacks of papers on his desks of songs. And he'd always be like off writing something down. So I kind of think that's maybe where I get the love of songwriting from. So when I had initially talked to my dad, like I said earlier, about wanting to pursue music, he made it very clear, like, okay, you want to be a musician? Like, what are you gonna have to say? Like, what do you need to write your own songs and have, something that people have, something that you feel like needs to be heard. So from that point on, I just kind of started writing about everything. I think we have like notebooks saved at home from when I was 10 years old, and I'm writing songs about, what I did that day, or my dog, or whatever it is. And then it's kind of interesting to see, as I grew up, you get to songs about my first love and my first heartbreak, and just, I've always also loved storytelling songs. So just kind of like made up stories. So I'd say my songwriting has kind of grown along with me, and gotten more mature as I have. So I definitely write a lot from personal experience. And then I love a good story song as well. And I definitely, on those types of songs, draw inspiration for my own life, but then take some liberties as well. So
I wanted to move on now to the next chapter, because we've started at the very beginning talking about your childhood, your upbringing, your schooling, your discovery of music. We briefly touched upon performing from a very, very young age at small town Opry stages. But my question was, what did you learn from performing to audiences as a child? And why were you keen to specifically play country music?
yeah, I think one thing that I learned definitely from performing on as a young child is to kind of go with it, I guess, because sometimes, like, especially if we're doing live band, like, if you mess up, you can't just, walk off stage. You gotta get through the song and go with it. And especially on some of the songs I was playing early on, like, they were songs that I had learned specifically for, this performance, because the band could only do certain songs or whatever it was. So I definitely learned, not I guess it taught me to not be like so scared, because I had a little bit of stage fright when I first started, and sometimes I still do, I'll admit to that. But it taught me to kind of put myself out there, because I would definitely say in my everyday life, I'm a little more reserved. So I think I learned to kind of, when you step on the stage, you're almost stepping out of who you are and putting on a performance. So
You briefly have already touched upon The Voice and auditioning for that television show, an early musical adventure and journey in your life.
yes.
What made you decide to take part in the popular TV talent show, and how would you rate the overall experience? And were you disappointed not to progress to the televised stages?
Yeah. I'd always heard people like talking about, you should go audition for The Voice or American Idol or whatever. I think a lot of times when you're a good singer, people are just automatically like, you should go audition for this singing TV show. And I had done a couple of like American Idol auditions. I had never auditioned for The Voice, but I heard that they were doing an open call in Austin, Texas. So it was actually the summer right after I had graduated high school, and I just begged my mom to take me down to Austin to audition. And she was a little unsure about it, because that was obviously the summer going into college. So I had a lot of other stuff going on, but I was able to convince her. So I went down to the open call audition and did, waited in the whole line, did that whole thing, and stepped up to sing my a cappella song. And I just kind of, it's always weird because I feel like that was one, oh, did I lose you? Sorry, I had a thing pop up on my phone. That was one moment where I felt like I did the audition and I was very confident and sure of myself, which doesn't happen very often. I'm definitely like a person who overthinks a lot of things. But as soon as I, sung my audition, I felt really, really good about it. And so stepped back into my place in line, and then the judge, the producer, whoever was you auditioned for first, did their whole like, okay, thank you guys so much for coming in, and called out my number. She was like, I want you to hang back. She told me I had made it through the open call audition, and then did several more auditions after that to get to going to Los Angeles. It's kind of a long process. Flew on a plane by myself for the very first time, and made it to like the official cast. And I did get to go and audition in front of the judges. Unfortunately, when I did my audition, I will say, I always say, I think the nerves had finally kind of gotten to me there. I felt like my voice was a little bit shaky when I auditioned, and I don't think it was my best performance. There was only one spot left on Shakira's team at the time, and they were all so nice. All the judges were, and gave me great advice. Shakira said I wasn't exactly what she was looking for to fill the last spot on her team, which I have no hard feelings about whatsoever. But I would say overall, it was a great experience. I don't have any regrets about doing it. I would encourage anyone that wants to audition and try out to go for it. I met some really great friends there. And like I said, it really lit a fire under me to pursue music full time. And it kind of gave me that confidence that it was something that was possible. Because before that, I'd only seen, people that I idolized in music, Miranda Lambert or Martin McBride or whoever. And you see people that have already made it and are already successful. But when I did The Voice, I was able to meet other artists that were working at it every single day and kind of going through the hard part.
Before we started recording this interview, I kind of shared my experiences and recollections of going to Nashville. I had fond memories from going there, but ultimately it seems every musician's dream, if they want to make it in the music industry, is to move and go to Nashville to fulfill their ambitions. But what made you decide to move to Nashville? And did you have a plan in place before relocating?
Yeah, I think as soon as I got home from Los Angeles from doing The Voice and I was back in college, it was from then on, okay, how do I get to Nashville? Because that's where I want to be. And my parents really wanted me to finish my degree. I'd already put in some of the work. And so I kind of stuck it out in Fayetteville, but I knew the plan was the minute that I graduate, I am driving up to Nashville. And it's crazy because I did have so much time where I knew that I was going to move to Nashville. I could have probably come up with a little bit of a better plan getting here because I didn't know anything. I didn't make any job plans or anything like that. I just got in my car, drove up here. I think I had come up maybe a weekend before to find an apartment and, had that, but definitely didn't have, I was very much just kind of like, I'll figure it out when I get there. And if it's meant to be, it's going to happen. So it wasn't my most prepared thing, but I got here and I got a restaurant job or receptionist job or something and just kind of started working at making the connections here and finding people to write with and that kind of thing. But no, definitely didn't have a solid plan.
You make this major change in your life, and that's moving to Nashville. which you've just spoken about. But what were your earliest impressions of Nashville? And can you talk about your experiences performing on the music scene there?
Yeah, I think my earliest impression of Nashville was overwhelmed. I remember being really overwhelmed. I moved from my college town where I was kind of a big fish in a small pond. You know, my band was decently successful there. We were booking tons of gigs and everybody kind of knew me as the singer. And then you move to Nashville, and everywhere you turn, there is somebody that is an amazingly talented songwriter or a guitar player or singer or whatever it is. And I just remember being a little bit intimidated when I first moved here. And then then I kind of let that intimidation fuel me to like, okay, I'm gonna try to get better. I want to be a better songwriter, a better singer. I want to be a better performer. So initial thoughts was just overwhelmed for sure.
You're pretty much in America's music capital, and you've mentioned this high pedigree and caliber of musicians, some of the most incredible guitarists. And as I mentioned in my introduction, the John Sebastian song, Nashville Cats, about some of the great guitar pickers and how good they are, almost like you don't want to open your guitar case because every player is just, so incredibly talented. But can we talk about seeking management and musical representation whilst you were in Nashville? And second to that, Mary, do you currently have a publishing deal, and can you discuss your experiences of writing songs on Nashville's MusicRow?
I feel very, very lucky because my manager actually reached out to me, and I feel so thankful to have him. He's been a great business relationship. I had done everything kind of independently. I had released my first single called Treasure, and had pushed it to done some secondary radio. So like all the little small stations. And my manager actually just happened to be driving to his home state of Mississippi. And he was kind of going back and forth between some of the local stations there, listening to music, because he said he just kind of likes to keep up with what all the small local stations are playing, because you get some stuff that's not, Billboard top 100. And my song came on, and him and his wife were in the car, and they were like, who is this? Like, they didn't catch the name. And so he actually said that he pulled over and started Googling the lyrics and found out that it was my song, and then reached out to me on Instagram and email. And he said that he was always worried that I wasn't going to see his message or be, not respond to him, because one thing about Nashville is because there are so many people here chasing their dreams, there's also a lot of scams when it comes to management and, people that will claim they can help you, which I was very, very wary when I got the message from him, but did some research, found out he was legit, and went into his office, and we just kind of clicked right off the bat. And he's been very great helping me, just with my goals and staying organized. So very, very thankful to have him. And I think it was definitely meant to be that we were working together. As far as publishing deal goes, haven't signed anything yet. I've definitely talked to some publishing companies and have relationships and write at several of them, but haven't signed an official deal. I'm really looking for whatever company feels like the right fit, and I don't want to rush into anything. I just want to find somebody that really gets what I'm trying to do and is 100% behind that. So we're kind of taking our time there.
Technology drives change, and the music industry has changed radically throughout the years and will continue to evolve and change. And social media has played such a big part for artists in terms of publicizing and gaining an audience from it. I wanted to
Yes.
ask you, how important has social media been in publicizing you and your music, and what are your thoughts on it? And can you also share with us this story of teasing a new song called Treasure on TikTok and how that went viral and gave you widespread exposure?
Yeah, that was crazy. Social media has been a game changer for me as an independent artist. And it's so funny because I think most of my friends will tell you I wasn't always a huge fan of social media. I found it like kind of annoying to have to post about. I'm like, why does anyone care about what I'm doing in my day-to-day life? And it was actually my younger brother who first talked to me about TikTok. And back in 2020, when everybody was kind of getting on TikTok, uh, I had a couple of musician friends that were talking about it, but I kind of saw it as this app that I didn't quite understand. I get on there and I'm seeing all these dances and I'm like, ugh, or things that are very gimmicky. And I just was like, I don't know if I can find a way to do this that feels authentic to my brand and who I am. So I kind of stayed off of it. And then my brother's like, no, there's all these musicians that are putting their music on there and being, discovered. It's a really good tool. And I think you're missing out if you don't at least try. So I downloaded the app and I started posting, got a couple thousand views here and there. And then I actually was trying to record something else, another song that I had written, and I kept messing up. I'm not the best guitar player, so I kept messing up the chords to the song, and I was getting really, really frustrated. And I remember I just wanted to post something that day, and I remembered that my co-writer Stephanie Joyce and I had written this really fun song about my bad taste in men, and the song that I had been trying to record before that was like this slow ballad. So I was like, I'm just gonna do this fun song, get something posted for the day. So I'm sitting on my floor, it's like midnight, and I record this little clip of the song Treasure that we had written, and I posted it, and it was the most insane thing. Like, to this day, I'll never forget the feeling of posting it and then setting my phone down and then just hearing my phone, just like the notifications just over and over. Like, my phone can't even keep up with how many notifications are coming through. It was wild. So I click on there and I open up the TikTok app and it's at like, 50,000 views or whatever it is. And then every time I'm refreshing, that number is like going up by the tens of thousands. By the next day, I think it had hit 1 million views. And then we really, really rushed to get in the studio and get it recorded. And I think we had it out within the next month. And that's kind of the story with the song. I never intended to put the song out, but the fans on TikTok really responded to it. So I'm glad that I did. It's been a song that's changed my life for sure.
So you've spoken about social media and a song going viral. I wanted
Yes.
to talk now about songwriting, because your songwriting is personable and it's delivered with this tongue-in-cheek humor. But Mary, what makes you write songs about your questionable taste in men? And would you describe yourself as a storyteller? And of the songs you've written, do you have any personal favorites?
Yes. Oh man, like I said, I try to write a lot about my own personal life. So, with Treasure, I had just gone through a breakup, and my friend Stephanie we were just hanging out one night and she was like, do you think you're ready to start dating again? And I remember just being like, I don't think I can be trusted. I just have picked the worst guys. And, my humor is very self-deprecating. So I was kind of poking a little bit of fun at myself. And then we were sitting there, we're like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea for a song. So that's kind of how that one came about. So I do write a lot about, my own personal life. And of course, sometimes that's exaggerated for a song or whatever it may be. But I also love storytelling songs. So like with this most recent single, Small Town Saturday Night, it kind of tells little stories from living in a small town, and those are more just made up or inspired by things that I've heard. Yeah, so kind of, oh, and my favorite song that I've written is actually a song that isn't released, but I plan on releasing it at some point. And it's a song that I wrote for my dad about my grandfather that I mentioned earlier, who was a songwriter. And it kind of talks about his life story. He struggled with alcoholism his whole life and passed away when my dad was 15. So that's just a really special one. And I think one of the ones that I'm most proud of. So
Whilst we're on the theme of songwriting, I wanted to ask you about the process. Do you have a particular routine for writing your own songs? And do you draw on inspiration from other songsmiths as well?
definitely, I try to listen to a lot of different genres of music and pull inspiration from all different genres. I also love listening to like interviews like this and kind of hear what other songwriters' processes are. My process kind of changes every time, especially depending on if I'm writing by myself or I'm writing with a co-writer. If I'm writing by myself, I really just try to like kind of get in a headspace to sit down and write. And that might be just fleshing out an idea or coming up with a couple lines to bring into a co-write. It might be writing a full song. It might just be like a cool melody idea. And if it's a co-write, I try to come prepared with some ideas, but I never walk into a co-write saying like, it has to be about this today, because sometimes you come up with really interesting things just by sitting down and chatting for a second and finding out what's new in each other's lives, and inspiration comes from that. So I try not to be I try not to have any expectations when I'm going into a co-write.
It's interesting because you've mentioned Stephanie Joyce's name and you've spoken about co-writing and collaboration. Can you discuss working with her and what she brings to the table?
Yeah.
And can you discuss also the process of writing with somebody else? Do you find that easier in some ways because you can bounce ideas off one another, or do you find it more difficult than writing solo? How does that kind of creative process work for you?
Yeah, I find it it's interesting. When I'm writing by myself, it can be hard because I am pretty critical. So one thing that I enjoy about co-writing is sometimes I'll, throw out an idea and be like, oh, I don't know if I like that. And then the other person's like, no, that's really good. I think you have something there. So it kind of gives a little bit of reassurance, because I tend to overanalyze and think everything's not good enough. It's a little bit of a block for me sometimes. And writing with Stephanie is awesome because we have a great relationship, not only as collaborators, but also she's a really close friend of mine as well. So writing with her is very easy and second nature because she knows me super well, because we're friends outside of music as well. So I love writing with her and I find it really, really easy. We have similar writing styles, but I just think we bounce, sometimes you meet someone and you click and you're able to easily bounce ideas off of each other. So that's been a great relationship for, my music. And writing with other co-writers it's I don't know. I feel like I always approach it differently depending on the person. If I'm writing with somebody that is really, really good at guitar or melodies, I'm going to let them take the lead on that and kind of let them shine where they are, where their strengths are. For me, I always think my strengths are kind of, I'm more lyric driven. I find it easier to write lyrics, but I sometimes occasionally will come up with a cool melody too. So
the current music scene, and if we go right back to the evolution of music and its history, is full of tremendous songwriters, and we could be here all night name dropping so many great songwriters, particularly even just in the country music genre. But of all the songwriters, past or present, are there any that you would love to collaborate with and co-write with?
I think my favorite songwriter is probably Jason Isbell. I just think the way that he writes is so beautiful, and it's always something really interesting. You don't listen to a Jason Isbell song and find something in it that's cliche. You're gonna listen, even if it is, it's like a cliche that's like flipped or turned around to make it interesting. So I would, oh my gosh, if I ever got to collaborate with him, I would be thrilled. Even if I just got to sit down and chat with him about what his process is, I think that would be amazing. So
Co-writes, dream collaborations,
yeah.
writing from personal experience about innocence and lost love. We now come on to the road and touring and performing on the live scene, because you've been lucky enough to go on the road and support many musicians, and we can name many: Justin Moore, the great Hank Williams Jr., Toby Keith, the Eli Young Band, and Whiskey Myers. Are there any memorable moments from opening for these acts and performing at high profile venues and major festivals?
I think I'm trying to think what the first, like, one of the things that's been cool about getting to open for some of these people is just being like able to be introduced to their fans and show them, my music, because they kind of have that built-in audience. So it's obviously great to get to open for these people, because you get to, go out for people that may not have heard your music, but there's kind of that built-in crowd already there. So I think that's been one thing that really has been cool. Some of the biggest shows that I've played have been some of these opening acts, and you look out and there's all these people, and that's just a really exciting feeling. I've also really enjoyed getting to talk to some of the people that I've opened for, get their advice on, how they got to where they are, watch them perform, watch how they treat everybody that works with them. I think that's one thing that I've really taken away, is just being appreciative of everybody that kind of helps you get to where you are. Because, me as a singer, I'm, the kind of the face of it, but there's so much going on behind the scenes. And I've noticed that everybody that I have opened for has just been like so kind and gracious to their team, the sound people, the light people, their band and everything. And I think that's something that I've really taken away as well, is be good to the people that are working with you and making you look good. So
I wanted to hear your take on one particular thing. I suppose the goal for any musician is for their music to be exposed to the masses, or as many people as possible, whether that's through radio, streaming, or performing at big venues. As a performer, do you like performing to, big audiences, or do you kind of prefer that more intimate environment, that more close setting where it's not so huge a stadium audience, it's a bit more intimate?
Yeah, I like both. I think there's one thing that I love about playing for like a huge audience is that I tend to not get as nervous, because everybody kind of blends together, as opposed to some of these smaller shows. It's so intimate. You feel like people are, you're right there in front. And I think for me, it's kind of a mental thing. So I find it easier to perform in front of a big audience. But I also really appreciate some of the smaller shows, like when I've played at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, which is a very, very small venue, the way that people really hone in on what you're saying and they're really paying attention. So, when I'm doing maybe more of a serious song, I prefer kind of the smaller venue, but it definitely makes me a little more nervous to play for a smaller group of people.
And interestingly, Mary, have you performed outside the US as yet?
No, not yet. I haven't actually traveled much outside of the US. I'm coming to London for the first time this summer, not to perform, sadly, but just to travel. And I'm hoping there's more of that in my future, because I would love to get to play overseas at some point, but it hasn't happened yet.
I wanted to come on to future aspirations and musical plans. Are you currently working on any projects, or do you have an album in the works? And where do you see your career, say, in 5 years from now?
I'm always writing and working on the next thing. So, right now we've been focusing on this single that I've just released, and we've kind of been single driven. So we've released quite a few singles, but I think definitely an album is in the future. I'm trying to be very, very intentional about what I include on the album. I would like it to have a cohesiveness sonically, or possibly a concept album. So I'm writing for that right now, and it's something that I'm excited about in the future. But yeah, right now we're just kind of releasing a few singles and music videos and that kind of thing. But people can definitely expect an album in the future. Just not exactly sure when, but hopefully in the next year.
Mary Heather, we're nearly at that moment where we wrap the interview. We ask all our guests the same quick fire questions. All will be revealed shortly. Before we get to that part, one final question. Away from making and performing music, what are your interests and what do you like to do to relax? And then second to that, are there any musical avenues you'd like to explore in the future, such as writing for other artists or composing for film, television, or commercials?
Yeah, I would love to write for film. I love film and movies and that kind of thing. So like writing the soundtrack for something would definitely be something I would be interested in. I would also love maybe to get into acting at some point. I did theater in high school and always enjoyed that. So that might be something I would love doing. As far as like what I like to do when I'm not doing music, I love cooking. All my friends know I love cooking, like having a bunch of people over and making dinner for them. I love spending time with my dog and going outside and just going on walks, watching movies, hiking, that kind of thing. I love getting to go back to Arkansas when I can, and spending time with my family and getting outside. Yeah, I think that's probably, there was another question you asked. I'm trying to see if I hit all the questions that you asked.
Yeah, I think that was it really. To
okay,
just
great.
ask, kind of what you like to do, what your interests are outside of music.
Yeah.
Mary Heather Hickman, we reached that moment. We've asked all our guests these same quick fire questions just to wrap the interview and find out things about you that maybe we've not established in the last 60 minutes. I think you're interviewee number 116.
Oh, wow.
So quite a few have done this. We always get some pretty interesting answers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're in the psychologist chair.
Okay.
Here we go. First one, what would you say is your favorite pastime?
Cooking.
Yeah, you mentioned a love of cooking.
Yes.
Already, and we'll come back to cuisine shortly.
Okay.
We move on to cinema, and you've expressed an interest in film, particularly from a storytelling point of view. But what is your favorite film and why?
Thelma and Louise. I I think that when I just love that movie, I watch it like at least once a year. So
It's a good choice. A road
yes,
movie. And interestingly, you pick that movie from the front seat of your car.
yes.
Um, the
I
great
guess I relate.
two greats. I love Susan Sarandon and
Me too.
Gina Davis, of course. Ridley Scott directing. From Thelma
Yes.
and Louise is your film choice. Thirdly, third question, who would you cite as your favorite novelist?
Mm, I love The Great Gatsby. So Fitzgerald, maybe?
Good choice again.
Yeah.
From novelists now to professions, if you could have had a different profession away from music, what would you have chosen and why?
I guess I'm gonna have to go with my initial before I did music. So I broadcast journalism, although I would hope it'd be evening news because I'm not a morning person. So
It's interesting you say broadcasting, because broadcasting can comprise of so many things. It could be a radio host or presenter. It could be a news anchor woman,
yeah.
interviewer. Is there something you specifically like to focus on?
Initially I wanted to do like reporting. So, be a reporter. But I think I would also love to do radio as well. So if maybe if I wasn't doing music, I would be like a radio host or something.
In life, we all have inspirations, but if you had to choose one, who would you say has been the greatest in your life so far?
I would say my it's hard. My mom, I don't want to my parents both, but I would say my dad, he's such a hard worker and he's so driven and I think, I know everybody says it's, their parents or something, but I think uh my dad really taught me the importance of hard work. So
We come back round to broadcasting again. This time we ask you to choose your favorite newspaper. Do you read a newspaper? And if so, which
oh,
one?
I don't read a newspaper as much as I should. The news is so crazy these days. I try not to get too wrapped up into it, but I probably read maybe like the New York Times or I'm more like just articles that people send me, I guess.
A love of cookery and
Mhm.
cuisine. But what would you say, Mary, is your favorite food?
Favorite food is definitely, I'm gonna have to say, growing up in Texas, it's Tex-Mex. It's the one thing I miss, like not the one thing, but one of the main things that I miss about living in Texas.
From cuisine now to cultural icons, we ask all our guests to choose their favorite one. Who would you cite as yours? It could be someone from music, could be someone who's maybe changed the course of history, a designer, an inventor, someone of some importance. Who would you say is
Hmm.
your favorite cultural icon?
I'm gonna say Dolly Parton. I just listened to a podcast about her life, and I'm on a Dolly Parton kick right now. So
Good choice. And again, an excellent songsmith, a strong-minded woman who's been an incredible business mind as well. Um,
absolutely.
from Dolly Parton now to curse words, what would you say is your favorite curse word and why?
Oh no, my mom. I hope my mom doesn't watch this one. It's probably fuck. It's probably the one I say most often.
Most
Sorry.
people choose that one, so you're in good company.
Okay.
Uh, from curse words to favorite places, what would you say is your favorite place or holiday destination?
Hmm. My favorite place is probably just my parents' cabin in Morro Bay, Arkansas. It's the place where I feel most at peace.
You never want to ask any music artist their favorite musician or inspiration, because I imagine there's been so many and you've cited a few today, but who is your favorite music artist, Mary, and what is your favorite album?
Hmm. Whew, that's a hard one. Um, I'm gonna say uh favorite music artist is Loretta Lynn. I'm gonna go with that.
And an album from maybe a particular time in your life. Maybe there's an album that every couple of years you go back to because it means something in particular to you. It might inspire your own songwriting.
Oh, I'm gonna go back to that album that I mentioned earlier in the interview, the Wide Open Spaces from the Chicks. Because I think that's what got me into country music, like for me wanting to do it myself.
What would you say next is your greatest achievement to date?
I think my greatest achievement so far is being able to be a full-time musician. Recently this year, I quit my job as a server. So that was kind of a momentous occasion for me, was when I was able to say, okay, I feel secure enough in the money that I'm making for music to not have to do this side gig anymore.
And Mary Heather Hickman, the final question. How do you wish to be remembered?
Oh, that's a hard one. I hope I'm remembered as a great musician and a songwriter, but first and foremost, I hope people remember me as just a genuine and kind person, and someone that my friend, like as far as my friends and family go, that they can count on when they need someone.
Some nice final words, Mary Heather Hickman.
Thank you.
That is a wrap. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you
for taking part
so much
in tonight's Your Take. It's been an interesting interview. It's been interesting to hear your journey and the risks you've taken as well to relocate and chase your dream out in Nashville and become an original songwriter, producing your own material. I wish you all the best in the future, and I'm looking forward to hearing your progress, what you do along the way, and also releasing an album. So yeah, thanks for taking part, and all the very best coming to London on these shores.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, thanks for sharing your journey. And finally, how do we listen to your music and find out more about your music?
Yes, you can follow me. Everything's just at Mary Heather Hickman. And if people want to be directed to my social, like all of my socials are on my website, maryheatherhickman.com. Thanks again for being a guest on Your Take. Yes, thank you for having me. This has been awesome. And thanks for dealing with all the chaos in the car.